Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our first NBC weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 30 chapters all over the region. First NBC Bank, a proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. Well, it's senior day for Tulane. They play at 2:30 in the afternoon at home against East Carolina. Rough year for Conference USA, but not for the Pirates. They're 5-1 in the league, 6-4 overall. Have a very good quarterback, a very good receiver, and this will be a very tough match for Tulane.
It really will. Tulane, as you mentioned in your story yesterday, they had a 4-game stretch of some very winnable games. They were only able to get one of those 4. Some close calls in there, but at the end, the thing that has really cost them the last 2 weeks especially is turnovers. If Tulane plays turnover-free, I feel like they can at least be competitive in these last 2 games. And you got a chance, with emotion of senior day and things like that. Anything is possible when you're playing at home in that kind of environment. And we'll see exactly what happens on Saturday.
Ryan Griffin has to play at an extremely high level. Receivers have played well. They've stepped up. And the unsung hero is Cairo Santos, a nominee for the Lou Groza Award, 17 of 17 field goals. The only extra point he's missed was blocked. I can't fathom a kicker having a better year.
Well, and it's not like he's just making chip shots either. He's made a 54-yarder, which tied the school record. He made a 57-yarder a couple of weeks ago against Rice, which broke the school record. So a record, by the way, that had gone back 4 decades. You may not remember, Mark Oliveri originally set the school record. Straight on kicker, move from nose guard to kick, going way back to the early days of the Superdome, in fact. That's how far back we're talking. But an extraordinary accomplishment. I filled out my All-American nomination list for the football writers this week, and I had Cairo Santos down as my kicker.
Should be. And what a future their secondary has with Jordan Batiste and Darian Monroe and Lorenzo Doss as well. LSU, Ole Miss, Tiger Stadium, 2:30. Rivalry renewed. I'm impressed with the job Hugh Freeze has done. Ole Miss is getting better, but they're not as good as LSU.
No, they're not. And again, it's senior day at LSU, and you think these guys want to play their final game in Tiger Stadium, go out on a high note. First and only afternoon game of the year in Tiger Stadium. After last year, every SEC game was played in the daytime. So, you get the whole day-night thing, but it'll finish at nighttime, so you at least have that going.
And the way things are stacking up, LSU can still finish in the top 5 nationally, and they can certainly get a Sugar Bowl bid or a major bowl bid if they can win out. And, Lenny, I expect they're going to win out.
I think they're certainly in position to win these 2, and then you got to see how it falls. Remember, the SEC is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in the BCS right now. LSU at this point, unless some upsets happen and they can find their way into the SEC championship game, and you're talking about Alabama losing to Auburn, Texas A&M beating Missouri, LSU winning the last 2, that's the equation for LSU to get in the SEC championship game and perhaps earn themselves a spot in the Sugar Bowl. Other than that, it's going to be the SEC champion in the Sugar Bowl unless, again, you get those upsets and Alabama perhaps ends up in the national championship game. A lot to take in there, but LSU is certainly in position to be that second SEC team to get a BCS bowl bid, whether it would be the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl. Hey, who knows?
Yeah, very much so. The possibility still exists. That's why we bring it up. Saints, of course, are out in Oakland against the Raiders, a team that's given up 97 points in their last 2 games, but it's still a long trip. And it's a team that will be playing for pride in the Raiders that certainly at home before their raucous fans will probably play up to the competition.
How about Joe Vitt coming up with the stats yesterday about teams who have had that kind of defensive performance like the Raiders did last week, giving up 55 at Baltimore, what they've come back and done the next week. It's pretty remarkable. Don't forget, remember last year the Saints hung 62 on the Colts, and what did they do the next week? Yeah. They went out and laid an egg. It's one of those things where when you get a team coming off a bad performance, a lot of times you're going to get their best the following week, and the Saints have to be wary of that. Clearly the Saints are the better football team, but you still have to be wary of that long trip and handling that bounce-back possibility.
Yeah, playing outdoors, grass, we'll see. Bottom line is the Saints are the better team, and if they play well, they'll be fine. The Hornets, a loss at Houston last night, had a horrible second quarter, got destroyed in the second quarter, killed the rest of the game, even though they won the other 3 quarters, and obviously it's disappointing, but that's a young team.
Yeah, and good that they bounced back from a 20-point deficit to get it within basically a one-possession game at one point, but just couldn't close the deal out. Tough test coming up Friday night. OKC comes into town and defending Western Conference champions, and then they've got a tough back-to-back because then you've got to make the long trip up north to Milwaukee to come back and play on Saturday night. That's about as long of a home road back-to-back as you'll endure in this league. And, with a young team, hey, they did it once before. They came back and went to Chicago in the second half of the back-to-back and dealt with it without Anthony Davis. So that's two key games to watch for this weekend.
And getting Matt Carroll on board, hopefully he'll provide a little bit of scoring at that two-guard spot where they have needed some scoring thus far this year. Gravis Vasquez, vastly improved player. One of the most improved players in the NBA, and that's a godsend for the Hornets. We'll see how they do. That's our First NBC Weekend Preview, brought to you by First NBC Bank. Do your banking at First NBC Bank, and don't forget to watch Sports NOLA TV Monday night, 6 p.m. on WHNO Channel 20. Lenny, it's always a pleasure.
We'll see you Monday.
All right, have a great weekend. For Lenny, I'm Ken Trahan. God bless you one and all. See you Monday.